A poor orphan, thrown out into the cold by the very woman who once called her daughter. Her wicked stepmother believed this would be her end, that she would beg, suffer, and disappear into the shadows of life. But fate had other plans. Will her stepmother's cruel wish come true? Or will this painful road become the very path to a destiny greater than anyone imagined? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear is a powerful story of rejection, resilience, and redemption that will stay with you long after it's told. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, subscribe for more unforgettable true life stories filled with lessons, love, and second chances. Now, let's begin. Bimbo's life began in sorrow. Her mother died just minutes after bringing her into the world in a small government hospital in Oyo State. The nurses whispered that it was due to complications from a long, exhausting labor. In the hospital corridor, her father, Padai, stood, with tears streaming down his face, holding his newborn daughter as though she was the last piece of his broken heart. He named her Bimbo, a name meaning child of wealth, praying that her name would one day rewrite her destiny. For the next 6 years, Bimbo was his entire world. He carried her on his shoulders to church. He tied her school ribbons each morning. He told her bedtime stories in their native Yoruba, whispering blessings over her as she slept. But Padai was only one man, lonely, struggling, and constantly reminded by relatives that a little girl needs a mother's care. So when he met Madame Teresa, a stylish widow with 2 children of her own, he believed this was divine intervention, and at first, it truly seemed like a blessing. Teresa was warm, beautiful, and loving. She called Bimbo my daughter, plaited her hair on weekends, and even bought her matching dresses to wear with her children. Fola and Tina, their modest home overflowed with joy. Sundays were filled with music, dancing, and laughter. But fate was about to turn. On a rainy Monday afternoon, Pa Edai left home for a mechanic appointment in Ibadan and never returned. His taxi was crushed by a trailer on the expressway. The news hit like a thunderclap. Bimbo, just 17 at the time, remembered collapsing by the window when the neighbors brought the news. Teresa cried, but there was something in her eyes, distant, cold. 3 days later, they buried Pa Edai in a quiet ceremony. No extended family came. Only neighbors stood by as Bimbo wept until her voice gave out. And then life shifted. At first, the changes were small. Bimbo's school uniforms went missing from her wardrobe. Mommy Teresa, I can't find my uniform, she asked softly. Teresa didn't even look up from the TV. No need for school. You're not a child anymore. Start preparing to be useful in this house. The next morning, she was handed a basin of bananas. Take these to the market, sell them. But Mommy, what about my week exams? Bimbo asked. Teresa's eyes turned sharp. Do I look like I have money for your exams? You want me to pay for you while my own children go hungry? You're not even my blood. That sentence cut deeper than any knife. Not her blood. What about the years she called her my daughter? What about the hugs, the matching dresses, the nights she laid her head on Teresa's lap? Reality didn't knock. It came crashing in like a violent storm. From that moment on, Bimbo wasn't a daughter anymore. She was the maid. Each day began before dawn. At 5 a.m., she was already in the kitchen, cooking breakfast for a family that no longer saw her. Then came the chores, sweeping the compound, scrubbing the floors, washing clothes, fetching water from a faraway tap. And after all that, she'd be handed a tray of bananas to hawk under the burning sun until her legs ached and her body begged for rest. Meanwhile, Fola and Tina lived like royalty. They slept in, tossed their dirty uniforms at Bimbo without even a thank you, and laughed behind her back. Banana Girl, Tina would whisper, smirking from behind closed doors. Still, Bimbo tried to endure. She told herself maybe Teresa's heart had hardened from grief. Maybe one day she would remember how she once called her my daughter, but days turned into weeks. Weeks into months, the love was gone, replaced by commands, and Slapstop Bimbo ate once a day, if at all. Some nights, the only thing in her stomach was water, just enough to keep the hunger quiet so she could fall asleep. Her bones pushed against her skin, her eyes sank, but she never complained. Every morning, she still greeted Teresa with a soft, "Good morning, Ma." She still obeyed, still hoped. She remembered her father's final words like a sacred song. Always be good, no matter what. Don't let the world make you bitter. So she smiled through pain, but inside her spirit was quietly breaking. One morning, as she knelt on the bathroom floor, scrubbing tiles with bare hands, she heard laughter from the living room. Fola was eating cereal, watching cartoons, living a life that could have been hers. And as Bimbo scrubbed, tears mixed with the soapy water. She whispered almost too softly to hear, "Is this really my life?" Something deep inside her began to crack. But what she didn't know was this. Her story, buried in dust, soaked in pain, was just beginning to rise. It was a scorching Thursday afternoon. The sun beat down like punishment. Bimbo, barefoot and exhausted, staggered behind the compound. Her arms ached from washing bucket after bucket of Fola and Tina's clothes. Her lips were cracked. Her stomach growled like a caged animal. She hadn't eaten since Tuesday. On Wednesday, Teresa had snarled, "If you're not hawking, you're not eating." And that morning, Bimbo's legs simply wouldn't carry her. She had collapsed in the bathroom, dizzy, the world spinning. But Teresa didn't care. Now, as she hung the last piece of clothing, her knees gave way. She fell face first into the hot, dry sand. For a moment, she didn't move. The taste of dust filled her mouth. Tears slid down her face, silent and slow. She thought of her father. Would he even recognize what his daughter had become? Would he forgive her for not being strong enough? She sat up, trembling, and whispered through cracked lips, "God, I don't want to steal, but I'm starving. Please, do something, anything." Her eyes drifted to the neighbor's yard, Mama Femi's house. Unlike Teresa, Mama Femi had a heart as soft as boiled yam. She was kind, always smiling, always waving when Bimbo passed. With shame clinging to her like sweat, Bimbo pulled herself up, wiped her tears, and walked to the old wooden gate connecting the two compounds. She knocked. The door creaked open. "Mama." Femi stood there in her wrapper and apron, wooden spoon in hand. She gasped, "Huh, Bimbo, you look like you've seen a ghost." "Are you all right?" Bimbo tried to speak, but nothing came out. Her throat was too dry. Mama Femi stepped closer, concern flooding her face. "Have you eaten today?" Bimbo shook her head. "Yesterday?" Another silent shake. Mama Femi covered her mouth in shock. "My God." She reached out, gently took Bimbo's wrist, and pulled her inside. Within minutes, a steaming plate of white rice, fried plantain, and spicy red stew was placed before her. And in that moment, the cracks in Bimbo's story became the first steps of her rise. Bimbo stared at the plate like it was treasure pulled from the depths of the earth. "Eat, my child. You're safe here," Mama Femi said softly. The first spoonful broke her. Tears streamed down her face before she could stop them. It wasn't just food. It was kindness. It was dignity. It was a reminder of what it felt like to be human again. She had forgotten the taste of being cared for without insults, without shame. Mama Femi stood quietly, wooden spoon in hand, watching Bimbo eat. Tears gathered in her own eyes. When the plate was clean, Bimbo whispered, voice trembling, Thank you, Ma. May God bless you. But Mama Femi's heart was not at peace. No, she was burning. Burning with anger at the woman next door. That evening, after feeding her own children, she tied her headscarf tight. Her face hardened. Like a lioness guarding her cub, she stormed into Teresa's compound. Teresa was lounging lazily in a plastic chair, sipping malt, while Tina tapped away on a shiny tablet. Mama Femi didn't bother with greetings. You should. Be ashamed of yourself, Teresa, she snapped. That girl hasn't eaten in 2 days. You've turned her into a slave. She's a child, not your maid. Teresa's eyes narrowed. And who asked you to feed her? You've been gossiping about me in the village, haven't you? Mama Femi stepped forward, voice rising. Gossip? Everyone in the street sees it, Teresa. They see how you treat her. Tina quietly slipped inside as her mother stood, face boiling. You dare enter my house and accuse me in front of my children? You think because you sell food you can disrespect me? Mama Femi's voice thundered back. I will speak the truth wherever. I stand. You're wicked. If your husband were alive, he'd weep at what you've done to that girl. That sentence was the spark that night when Bimbo returned from Mama Femi's house, faint smile dancing on her lips for the first time in days. Her doom was waiting at the door. From inside, Teresa's voice roared like thunder. You foolish girl. So, you've started reporting me to the villagers? Teresa's voice thundered through the compound. Do I look like your mate, who gave you the right to drag my name in the mud? Bimbo's heart raced. Ma, I didn't say anything. She just saw me slap. Teresa's hand cracked across her face before she could finish. You think you're smart? You think you can disgrace me in this compound? And then came the sentence that ended everything. Get out of my house. Bimbo blinked in shock. Ma, you heard me? Carry your useless bag and go before I call boys to throw you out. Tina and Fola stood by the door, silent. Not one word in her defense. With trembling hands, Bimbo walked to the tiny room she once called hers. She stuffed her few clothes into a plastic bag, her notebook, her Bible, and a small black and white photo of her father, the last pieces of her life. As she stepped out into the night, Teresa hissed, Don't ever come back. The gate slammed shut. Bimbo was 17, alone, homeless, heartbroken. The sky grew darker with every step she took. Her legs moved, but her mind felt numb. The plastic bag on her shoulder felt heavier than it should, as though it carried every piece of her pain. The streets were alive with noise. Horns blared, people brushed past her, but no one looked her way. A few motorcyclists whistled. Hey, fine girl, where you did go with that bag? She didn't answer. She couldn't, she just walked faster. By the time she reached the edge of town, night had swallowed the sky. The orange glow of streetlights lit her path. Shops closed their shutters. Bread sellers packed their tables. Children were called in by their mothers. Families went home, but Bimbo had no home to go to. Her slippers tore at the heel. Her feet ached. Her head throbbed. She didn't stop until she reached a concrete bridge curving over a canal. It was quiet, empty. She climbed down the rough slope beneath the bridge and found a dry patch near the wall. Her hands shook as she opened her plastic bag and pulled out the one thing that could comfort her, a small, worn photo of her father holding her as a baby. Tears rolled down her face. Daddy, she whispered, I'm trying. I'm really trying. She curled into herself, wrapping her scarf around her head to block the night air. The concrete was cold. The silence was heavy. Her stomach growled, but the hunger was nothing compared to the emptiness in her soul. Above her, headlights flashed on the road. She imagined them as falling stars. Maybe one would land close enough to warm her, but none did. Rats squeaked nearby. A dog barked in the distance. The stench of urine and smoke lingered in the air. Still, she didn't care, Dot. She was tired. Tired of everything. God. She muttered, her voice breaking. If this is how I'm meant to die, let it be quick. But death didn't come. Only morning. Bimbo woke to the light of dawn creeping through the cracks in the concrete. She was shivering, her limbs ached, her lips were dry. Her scarf was damp with dew. Still, she was alive. She sat up slowly, looking. At the road above, Dot life carried on without her. School children in crisp uniforms laughed and ran to the bus stop. Office workers checked their watches. Market women balanced basins on their heads. The world had moved on Dot, but Bimbo hadn't. She stood, shook the dust from her wrapper, and looked around. There was no one to pity her. No one coming to rescue her, Dot, not Mama Femi, not some long-lost uncle. Not even God. Bimbo stood beneath the bridge, staring at the world above. Her body was weak, but her spirit remembered something. Her father's voice. When the world turns its back on you, face it with your feet and walk. So she did. She picked up her plastic bag, tied her scarf tight, and climbed back up from the shadows beneath the bridge. That day, Bimbo made a silent vow. I will not beg. I will not steal. I will work. Even if it's the lowest. Kind. Even if I sweep gutters, I will survive. Her shoulders straightened, her eyes, though tired, focused, and she walked into town. The first gate she knocked on was a restaurant. Please. I'm looking for any job. Cleaning, washing, anything. The manager didn't even turn around. No vacancy. The next place was a supermarket. Do you have experience? The woman asked. I can learn. I work very hard. We're not hiring. By noon, she had knocked on more than 7 gates. Some people laughed. One security man mocked her. Go and marry. Small girls like you want to work like men. Still, she didn't give up. Late afternoon, she reached a tall silver gate. On the wall, a sign read, Sage Tech Industries, innovating Africa's tomorrow. She didn't know what the company did. All she knew was that it looked important and clean. Maybe there were floors to sweep, toilets to scrub. Dot. She approached the gate. The security man raised an eyebrow. What do you want? Bimbo bowed her head. Please, sir, I'm looking for any job at all. Cleaning, cooking. Security, if you'll teach me. The man scoffed. Security? With your bone legs? Go before I call Oga. Bimbo turned to leave. But then a sleek black Range Rover with tinted windows rolled up behind her. She quickly stepped aside, pressing herself against the wall. The gate opened. The car began to drive in. Then it stopped. The back window rolled down slowly. A man in a tailored navy blue suit sat inside. A silver wristwatch caught the light on his wrist. Clean-shaven, eyes hidden behind dark designer sunglasses, his presence was magnetic. The kind of man who didn't just walk into a place. He owned it. This was Mr. Smith, CEO of Sage Tech Industries. One of the youngest billionaires in Lagos, known for his genius in business and his guarded, untouchable personality. He was on his way to an investor meeting. When his eyes landed on Bimbo, she stood outside his gate, barefoot, dust clinging to her clothes, her scarf slipping from her shoulder. Her hands trembled as she clutched a torn plastic bag. She didn't even look up. Her shame was too heavy, but something about her posture stopped him. He leaned forward, stopped the car. The driver obeyed. Mr. Smith rolled down the window fully. Hey, you there. What's your name? Bimbo froze. Did he mean her? Slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen from days of tears, her face pale from hunger. She looked like someone who hadn't slept or eaten in days. Me, sir? She asked softly. Yes, you. What's your name? Bimbo, sir, she whispered, tightening her grip on the bag. What are you doing here? The security guard stepped forward quickly, nervous. Oga, she say she day find work. I been tell her make she go, but Mr. Smith raised his hand to silence him. His eyes stayed on Bimbo. You're looking for a job? Yes, sir. Any job at all. Cleaner, cook, even gatekeeper. Mr. Smith slowly removed his sunglasses. Bimbo single quotes as eyes darted to the ground. Why are you crying? He asked, his voice calm, almost gentle. Bimbo swallowed hard. It had been so long since anyone had asked her that. I've been sleeping under a bridge. My stepmother threw me out. I don't have anybody. I'm just looking for something. Somewhere to start again. Mr. Smith studied her. Her words weren't rehearsed. Her tone wasn't desperate. There was no trace of deceit. She wasn't begging. She wasn't scheming. She was simply surviving. In that moment, he made a decision. Get in. Bimbo blinked. Sir? Get in the car. You need food and rest. The security man gawked. Oga. She fit be thiefo? Mr. Smith shot him a glare so sharp it could cut steel. Do I look like someone who doesn't know what he's doing? Bimbo hesitated. Her legs trembled. Was this a trap? Or was this mercy? Sir, I don't want to cause problem. You already didn't. Now get in. She climbed in slowly, clutching her torn plastic bag like it was her only shield in the world. The moment she sat down, the scent of leather and cologne surrounded her. Her eyes widened. She had never been inside a car like this. It felt like another world, a heaven compared to the cold concrete of the bridge she had slept under. Mr. Smith picked up his phone. Tell the chef I'm bringing a guest. Make a fresh meal, chicken, jollof, plantain, and prepare the guest room downstairs. He glanced at Bimbo. What do you like to eat? She froze, stunned by the question. Anything, sir. Even just bread. He nodded. You'll have better than that. 20 minutes later, the Range Rover rolled into a tall black gate with marble walls and electric fencing. Banana Island. The mansion stood like something out of a dream, 3 stories high, lined with glass panels, fountains, and glowing security. Lights. Bimbo's jaw dropped. The driver stepped out and opened her door. Come. Mr. Smith said. She followed quietly, her worn slippers echoing softly on the marble driveway. Inside, the house looked like a magazine cover come to life. White tiles, gold chandeliers, walls covered in abstract art. The air itself smelled of wealth. A woman in a chef's uniform approached with a tray. Sir, food is ready. Mr. Smith gestured toward the dining room. Serve her there. Bimbo sat at the edge of a long, polished table. The chef placed a steaming plate before her. Jollof rice, grilled chicken, fried plantain, and chilled water. She stared at it for a long moment. You can eat, Mr. Smith said softly. She picked up the spoon. The first bite made her close her eyes. The warmth, the spice, the kindness behind it. It was the most delicious food she had ever tasted. And she couldn't stop the tears from falling. Mr. Smith noticed, but said nothing. When she was done, he turned to the housekeeper. Get her some clean clothes. Something simple and decent. She'll spend the night here. The housekeeper hesitated, surprised. Yes, sir. Then Mr. Smith looked at Bimbo. One more thing. I might have something better than a gate job for you. He paused. We'll talk tomorrow. Bimbo looked up, her voice trembling. Thank you, sir. God bless you. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe. She didn't know who this man truly was or why he was helping her. But she knew one thing for sure. Her story was no longer trapped under a bridge. It had walked through the gates of a mansion. The next morning, Bimbo awoke in a bed softer than clouds. At first, panic struck. The ceiling above her was smooth, white. A faint scent of lavender filled the air. This wasn't a street corner. This wasn't beneath a cold bridge. She sat, up quickly, clutching the blanket like a shield. Then it hit her. She was in his house, Mr. Smith's mansion. She looked around the guest room. White curtains swayed gently in the morning breeze. On the neatly arranged table sat a glass of orange juice, bottled water, and a fresh set of clothes folded neatly on a cushioned chair. They had even been ironed. Her chest tightened. Her heartbeat felt strange, not from fear, but from confusion. Why would a man like him help someone like me? Later that morning, dressed in the modest cotton blouse and simple skirt the housemaid had prepared, Bimbo stepped out of the room. Her hair was neatly packed, thanks to the maid who had helped her wash up the night before. As she descended the stairs, the smell of breakfast filled the air. Eggs, toast, peppered stew. Mr. Smith was already at the dining table, sipping tea and flipping through the newspaper. He looked up. "You're awake?" "Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. Sleep well?" She nodded. Double quotes. "Very well, sir. Thank you." He glanced at her with a faint smile. "Eat something. You're too light. You'll fly away in the wind." Her lips curved into a shy smile as she took her seat. As she ate, he leaned back, watching her quietly. There was something about her that stirred something in him. It wasn't pity. It was curiosity. She wasn't like the women who usually tried to get close to him. She hadn't asked for favors. She'd only asked for work. When she finished, he spoke. "You said you can cook?" "Yes, sir. Very well. Are you sure?" "I used to cook for the whole house every day," she said, her voice steady. He nodded once. "All right, then. The chef will let you into the kitchen today. Prepare something. If you impress me, you'll have a job here full-time. If not—" He paused. "We'll find you another path." Bimbo stood quickly. "Thank you, sir. I won't disappoint you." That afternoon, she stepped into the mansion's state-of-the-art kitchen, a space so grand it almost intimidated her. Marble countertops, double ovens, stainless steel appliances. Everything sparkled. The head chef, Madame, gave her a skeptical look. "You sure say you sabi cook?" Bimbo nodded. Double quotes. "Just give me a chance, ma." Madame crossed her arms. "Cook anything you want." "Let's see." Bimbo got to work. Fresh tomatoes, onions, peppers, rice boiling gently on the stove, stew frying with care, chicken seasoned to perfection. She moved like someone who had done this her whole life, not in a marble kitchen, but over firewood, with smoke in her eyes and hunger in her belly. But this time, she was fueled by something stronger. Hope. By evening, the rich aroma of her cooking filled the mansion. Mr. Smith entered the dining room with his childhood friend, Henry. "A lawyer visiting from Abuja?" Henry sniffed the air. "What's that smell?" "My new guest cooked," Mr. Smith replied casually. They sat at the table. Bimbo stood quietly in the corner, her heart pounding as they took their first bite. Mr. Smith paused mid-chew. Henry's eyes widened. "Who cooked this?" Bimbo stepped forward. Nervously, "I did, sir." Henry turned to Mr. Smith. "If you don't marry this girl, I will." Mr. Smith chuckled, but his eyes stayed on Bimbo. "It's not just good," he said slowly. "It's perfect." Her knees almost gave way in relief. That night, he called her into his study. "You now work here, full-time cook. You'll be paid, clothed, and have a roof over your head. No tricks. No funny business." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you, sir. I can never repay you. I didn't ask you to. Just be yourself. And stay honest." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Bimbo." "Yes, sir. You have something rare. Don't ever let the world make you feel less than you are." She stepped out, her hands shaking. For the first time in her life, someone saw her, not as a burden, not as a beggar, but as a person of worth. Bimbo never imagined herself in a place like this, marble floors, glittering chandeliers, a walk-in kitchen the size of her old home. But what surprised her most was how naturally she fit in. Every morning she woke early, tied her scarf, and stepped into the kitchen with purpose. Menus planned, stews simmering, pastries baking, the mansion filled with the smell of comfort. The staff adored her. She's different, the housemaid whispered to the gardener one afternoon. No pride, no gossip, just work and prayers. And Mr. Smith? He noticed everything at first. He told himself it was just admiration. She was hardworking, focused, never distracted. But deep down, something was changing. The more Mr. Smith watched her, the way she carefully sliced vegetables, the soft hum in her voice as she cooked, the way she laughed with the staff like they were family, the more he realized he was seeing something he hadn't seen in years. Joy, not the loud, fake kind that money could buy, but the quiet, steady kind that warms a house without anyone noticing. One evening, Mr. Smith hosted a private dinner for a few powerful investors. The head chef had traveled, so Bimbo prepared the entire menu alone: a goosey soup with pounded yam, fried snails with pepper sauce, grilled tilapia, coconut pudding so good. Every guest scraped their spoon against the glass. After the guests left, Mr. Smith walked into the kitchen. You did all this? She nodded shyly, wiping her hands on her apron. He smiled. Bimbo, this is something rare. I haven't eaten like this in years. Thank you. It's nothing, sir. He shook his head softly. Oh, Bimbo, it's everything. Their eyes met for just a moment, and something shifted from that night on. He found more reasons to stop by the kitchen, sometimes to ask what she was cooking, sometimes to ask how her day was going, sometimes for no reason at all. One afternoon, as she sliced onions, he leaned casually against the counter. You know, he said almost too casually, you're the first person who's made this house feel like a home. She looked up, startled. Me? Yes, you. There was silence. She lowered her eyes and whispered, Sir, I'm just grateful for everything. He nodded slowly. So am I. But not everyone was happy. Linda, his assistant, noticed the change. The way Mr. Smith smiled more, the way he canceled dates with models, the way he spent more time at home. You're falling for the cook, she teased one day, half joking. He didn't reply, because deep down, he knew it was true. And it terrified him. He was a billionaire, a man used to control, predictability, walls. Bimbo was none of those things. She was unpredictable. She was kind. She was pure. She hadn't come for his money. She didn't even know how wealthy he truly was. One night, he stood on the balcony, looking down at the garden. Bimbo was outside, watering the flowers. The moonlight brushed against her face. She laughed softly at something the gardener said. Mr. Smith took a deep breath and made a decision. The next morning, Bimbo walked into the kitchen and froze. Mr. Smith was there. Not in a tailored suit, not with his usual business face, but dressed simply like a man, nervous, unsure, hopeful. Sir, she said softly. He stepped forward. Bimbo, I didn't bring you here for this. I never planned for this. Her brows furrowed. Planned for what? For you to capture my heart. Silence. She stared at him, stunned. Sir, I don't understand. I've met models, celebrities, daughters of politicians, but none of them ever gave me peace. When you walk into a room, it feels like the world slows down. Her hands trembled. I don't deserve that kind of attention, she whispered. He stepped closer. You deserve more than anyone ever gave you. Tears filled her eyes. I'm just a poor orphan, sir. No certificate, no family, no class. He looked at her with a softness that melted the air between them. You're Bimbo. And to me, that's enough. Mr. Smith's voice was steady as he reached for her hand, and in that quiet kitchen, something sacred happened. A poor orphan who had been tossed aside like trash was being offered love by a man who had everything and for the first time in her life, Bimbo believed she might be worthy of love too. The morning of the engagement was unlike anything she had ever known. Her hands trembled as she sat before the mirror in the mansion that was now her home. The makeup artist brushed her cheeks with soft strokes. The stylist adjusted the silky folds of her wine-colored gown. When she looked at her reflection, she hardly recognized herself. She no longer looked like the girl who once hawked bananas under the scorching sun. She looked reborn downstairs. Mr. Smith paced the marble floor like a nervous schoolboy. Henry, his best friend, laughed. You've closed billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. Why are you acting like a scared teenager? Mr. Smith smiled faintly, because this is bigger than any deal I've ever made. When the engagement photos hit social media, chaos erupted. Who is she? She's not from any wealthy family. Mr. Smith must be bewitched. But nothing stopped him. The man who once guarded his private life was now proudly holding Bimbo's hand at charity events, and when reporters asked about her, he smiled and said, "She's the most honest person I've ever met, and the best cook in Africa." Their wedding was a modest, elegant affair in a serene Lagos garden. White roses lined the aisle. Golden drapes shimmered in the sun. Only 200 guests, media, close friends, and a few shocked business partners when Bimbo walked down the aisle in a flowing white gown. Mama Femi burst into tears. She clutched her head, crying out, "God, you are too much." I said it. This girl will not die a maid. As she walked toward Mr. Smith, her heart thudded. But the moment she saw his eyes steady, full of love, her fears melted away. "You may now kiss the bride." Their lips touched. The crowd erupted in applause. But far away, in a dusty compound in Abadan, Madame Teresa sat in front of an old TV, a plastic bowl of gari in her lap. Her eyes widened at the announcer's voice. In today's top story, billionaire businessman Smith Owena marries former homeless orphan, Miss Bimbo Aid. Their love story is inspiring millions online. The spoon slipped from her hand. Her daughter Tina gasped, "Is that not Bimbo?" "The one we chased out?" Teresa said nothing. Her chest tightened. Her throat burned. Regret hit her like a hammer. Back in Lagos, Mr. Smith had another surprise. Months after the honeymoon, he unveiled a brand new dream. Bimbo's Kitchen, where humility meets flavor. A restaurant inspired by her ideas, her recipes, and her story. Bimbo was no longer just a cook in someone's house. She was now the proud owner of a thriving business, but she didn't stop there. Bimbo launched the Bimbo Hope Project, a foundation to feed, train, and shelter young orphans and teenage girls cast out by abusive families. At the opening speech, she stood before the crowd, her voice steady yet full of emotion. "I was them. I walked barefoot. I starved for days. I slept under a bridge. But someone gave me a chance. And now I will do the same for others." The crowd rose to their feet, clapping as if their hearts couldn't hold it in any longer. Even Mr. Smith, the man who once built walls around his emotions, wiped a tear from his cheek. One cool evening, as the golden sun dipped below the horizon, Bimbo and Mr. Smith sat on the balcony of their mansion. The sky burned orange and pink. The city stretched endlessly beneath them. Bimbo leaned gently against his shoulder, her voice barely above a whisper. "Did you ever think someone like me could be here?" Mr. Smith turned, took her hand, and pressed a kiss against her fingers. "I didn't just find love, Bimbo. I found light. You healed something in me that even money couldn't touch." Bimbo's lips trembled as she smiled, her eyes glistening. And you made me believe I'm not trash. He looked straight into her eyes. No, Bimbo, you're treasure. And so, the girl who once hawked bananas in worn-out slippers, the girl who was thrown out with nothing but a nylon bag and a prayer, became a wife, a CEO, a mentor, and a symbol. Not because she begged, not because she schemed, but because she endured. Because when love finally found her, it found something rare, a heart that stayed kind, even when the world was cruel. Moral of the story, no matter how life begins, your past does not define your destiny. Bimbo's journey teaches us that with resilience, humility, and a kind heart, even the most broken life can be rebuilt. Rejection is not the end. It can be the redirection towards something greater. And the people who look down on you today may one day watch you rise beyond their reach. Sometimes all it takes is one act of kindness to change a life forever. I hope you were inspired by this story. Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what lesson you took away from Bimbo's journey. And guess what? Another powerful story is coming in just a few days. So make sure you subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and hit that like button. Share this with your friends and family because someone out there needs this reminder today.